Well, thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Networking and Interviewing Electronically, the Do's and Don'ts. I'm Greg Berry, Assistant Director in the UAB Office of Alumni Affairs. Just a quick disclaimer, since this is a virtual discussion, please don't be surprised if you hear or see things that seem out of place. I would also like to ask everybody to change their name on Zoom so we can better identify our guests. Just go to your name on the participants list, click More, and then enter your updated name. Also, in order to be mindful of our guests, I would like to ask everybody to remain muted. Are you looking for a new job, building your professional network, or wondering how the new virtual world will play a role in landing your next job? Today, we will set out to learn what we need to be doing while interviewing and networking electronically. Our featured guest this afternoon for this presentation is Brandon Wright. In 2018, Brandon joined UAB as the director of the Career Center. He is currently working on his PhD in Public Health Education and Promotion at UAB. Brandon earned his Master of Science in College Student Personnel and Bachelor of Science in Business Administration, Marketing, and Management from Arkansas Tech University. Now, before I turn things over to Brandon, I want to share a poll with our audience. We are looking to know, are you actively searching for your next job, waiting for the right time to look for your next position? You're always looking for your next move, or are you just curious about today's topic? I'm going to go ahead and keep the poll up for a few moments so you can submit your answers. After today's presentation by Brandon, we will have time to answer your questions, so be sure to submit any of the questions through the chat box. And let's go ahead and take a look at the poll question. I'm going to go ahead and shut things down there and share the results. Looks like 42% of our audience right now is actively searching for their next job, and then 48% are just curious of today's topic. Thank you so much for participating in that. And at this point, Brandon, I'm going to turn things over to you for your presentation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Greg. I need to be able to share my screen. If you can give me access to share my screen, that'd be great. Get right into it. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. Once again, my name is Brandon Wright, and I am the director at the UAB Career Center in the Division of Student Affairs. Been here about 2 years now, and so my role at the university is to ensure that all of our students and our alums have the resources, services, and connections they need in order to be successful upon transition outside of the university in their jobs or their careers or whatever it is path that they're trying to take in life. And so what I'm going to do is speak to a presentation today that is informative around networking and also interviewing in the current time. And so the networking presentation that we have set up is a combination of networking and employer, the elevator pitch. I'm sure many of you are familiar with that. And most of this, I don't want to overcomplicate this topic. It's just communication. And so whether it's done in person or virtually, there are some key concepts that we need to make sure that we're considering as alumni and as young alums to make sure that we have mastered it or that we're continuously working on, especially when we're in a process of looking for a new opportunity. So the learning outcomes of this presentation is that you'll be able to identify and identify the impact and benefits of networking, create and practice your elevator pitch using the past, present, and future method, and also analyze your own personal network and identify at least one networking opportunity using the platform Handshake. And then we'll move into more of a discussion around interviewing. What does interviewing look like? That piece of our presentation will be more discussion, and I have some notes that I want you to be prepared to take on there. So, working your network, what are we talking about here? When you're talking about your network is the circle of people that you surround yourself with. So who are you interacting with? Who are you exchanging information with? Who are you cultivating relationships with? All of these added together can lead to future opportunity, whether it's a job or a new mentor or a new business lead. All your network is crucial, and you should always be adding value to your network. And so when we say interacting with people, we don't just mean emailing back and forth with your coworkers. We're talking about mentors. We're talking about who is it that you're aspiring to be like, if there's individuals that you aspire, that you look up to. And, so for me in the Career Center, I have some Career Center vice presidents and the people that I look up to, that I try to model myself after. How can I add value? How can I interact with them? Whether it's seeing a post on LinkedIn that they are communicating about their institution, and I share that post, or I comment and I, congratulate them on their success. How am I interacting? How am I adding value to their life? Or who am I mentoring? And so mentorship is also a crucial piece of your network, and you should always be looking for opportunities to give back, and that's the exchange of information. And the more information you're able to share and also add, you will continue to cultivate positive and life-enhancing relationships that could lead to future opportunities. I'm not saying that every person in your life can offer you a job, but what I am saying is that your network has the opportunity within, 7 degrees of separation to open up the doors that you might be looking for in the very near future. So just be careful about what and how you're communicating with your network. We always are encouraging our alums to be reaching back to pull young alums ahead. Help other people get to where you are, and that's a great way to elevate yourself as well. So just be mindful about how you interact with people, how you exchange information, and how are you cultivating relationships explicitly in this environment, because we are more detached and we're more in a virtual, isolated environment. There's still ways for us to interact, and we'll move into that here shortly. So the importance of your network, networks are still the most profitable way for you to land an internship and be hired. And so, just making sure that you are intentional about how and who you are interviewing and who you are networking with. There's nothing wrong with asking individuals for support and for advice. And when you don't know something, that's a great reason to go find and expand your network. I've heard it said that if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to find another room. And so making sure that you have the breadth in your network that can not only recommend you, but also refer you is essential. It's one thing to have a network full of people that would say, hey, you're a great person, this is a great employee, this is a great manager, this is a great admin. But it's another thing to say, hey, you should hire this individual, and here's why, right? So are you referable is the question. And do you have individuals in your corner that will not only serve as an advocate for you, but also an ambassador for you, right? So those are some of the branches of your network that can support you landing an interview and also getting hired. I know many of us, we've gone through processes where, you're applying for a job and it always asks for recommendations, always. And we always say in the Career Center, pick the people that will speak the highest about your experience. Choose individuals from your past that will speak to what you do the best, and not just your prior supervisor, in that realm. So make sure that you're speaking to people that will both recommend you and refer you in this interview process as you are building your network. So here's the way that we're talking about building your network here at UAB, and all of our alums have access to Handshake. Handshake is the #1 career platform for our recent graduates here at UAB, and UAB is a part of the Handshake network, and you can find the link down below, uab.join Handshake, and all of you have access to that. And there's over 500,000 employers now. And then there's all Fortune 500 companies are connected to UAB, recruiting at UAB as well. Through the system, there's over 3.5 million jobs that circulate. And mind you, they're looking for college graduates. And that's why you want to make sure that you complete a profile and make sure that you have done your best to create a high quality brand. And so once you have a complete profile, and I want to emphasize the word complete because it's so crucial to your networking experience, is that once you've done that, you are 5 times more likely to be contacted by an employer. And there's over 25,000 searches per month by these employers in Handshake. And so you don't want to create this profile trying to network and build your network, whether it's with other alums from other institutions or more employers or alums at this institution in your same area of focus. But you want to make sure that you're building your best brand in order to optimize your experience as you are building your network. And Handshake is just one tool to do that. And so it's available on Apple and on Android. You can do all these different things like check your jobs. You can get messages from employers. You can message your peers. And this is where you can set up appointments with a career consultant in your area. You can look at different career networking events. You can build communities inside of Handshake. So let's say you're a computer science major and you're interested in working at Tesla. There are communities inside of Handshake that you can join. And let's say you're looking for an internship or some sort of opportunity there. You can browse and look at the forum and post a question, and you can get direct responses from individuals that have had those experiences that you're looking for. And so here's some setup. All you really got to do is, set up, go to uab.joinhandshake.com, and we will approve your profile there, and then you'll be on your way. And so LinkedIn is another great platform for the mid-level professional. And the reason why we push LinkedIn and Handshake is because LinkedIn is going to be more of your corporate, like I said, mid-level, executive level opportunities. And so it's still extremely important. I would challenge you, if you haven't looked at your LinkedIn profile in some time, I would challenge you to do that, because 77% of recruiters, when you're talking about job searches, and many of you, the majority of you have said that you are searching for an opportunity right now, majority of these recruiters are going to Google you, and they're going to perform an internet search on you, and whatever they find, you want them to know the best side of you. And so that's why LinkedIn is so important in your networking experience and in your interview experiences, because it has the capacity, just as Handshake does, to help you broadcast your best brand. And you want to do the best job at selling yourself when you are networking as a professional. And you can go in there, you can add projects and publications and things of that sort. You can list all your whole job experience. Many times when you're networking or you're job searching, people are told to have a one-page resume or have a limited resume, a very content-specific resume. On LinkedIn, the beauty behind LinkedIn is you can list everything, and when a recruiter researches or Googles you, you don't have to specify anything. You can list everything, all the impact that you've had, and that's perfectly expected. And so you don't have to shy away in LinkedIn. You can be very exhaustive. And so I want to encourage you to do that and get on top of that, especially in this digital environment. The recruitment environment is so digital right now. Now, we are on calls all the time with these recruiters, and they are doing so much more virtually, and it's extremely important for us to make sure that we are encouraging both our students and our alums to take some time and enhance your LinkedIn and your Handshake profile. So building your network, what does that look like? When we talk about that, prior to, COVID, we would say, hey, go out and have coffee with a mentor, attend a lecture or player concert, join a professional group, ask a friend out to lunch, or volunteer. A number of these things you can still do in a remote virtual environment. Really what it means when you're talking about networking opportunities is finding commonality. Finding individuals or finding meetups or finding groups that there is a common thread of interest, and you can add value or you can gain value from that experience. So there's some neat websites that provide these type of opportunities, like meetup.com. That's one that a student really just demonstrated to us the other day, and I thought that was a really unique opportunity. So it has, meetup opportunities for everybody, for nurses, for painters, for salespersons, for real estate agents. So if you're looking for networking opportunities, we would still say do some of the things, go join some professional development organizations that have forums, that have newsletters, that have virtual conferences, that have virtual coffee breaks, and engage there. Don't go just and be a consumer, but engage and share from your experience. Don't just limit yourself to just, like I said, being a consumer, but go and add value in those experiences. And so the elevator pitch, the elevator pitch is extremely uncomfortable for many people. And when you're networking, it's crucial. So I'll tell this story. We were having a career fair, and we were helping employers come in Hill Student Center. And we were on the elevator, and we had an employer on the elevator, and there's a group of students that were on the elevator. They were dressed great, and the recruiter asked the student what his name was, and the student said, "Hey, my name is such and such." And the recruiter asked the student, "Hey, what's your major?" And the student told the recruiter their major, and literally the recruiter was there looking for that student's major. And this happened this past academic year, literally. And the student said, "Hey, this is a great opportunity for me to share my elevator pitch," right? And so it's crucial. You never know when you're going to be in that predicament. It doesn't always happen on the elevator, but you got to have something in your pocket that allows for you to share who you are really quickly. And the elevator pitch does just that. And so the elevator pitch is your professional introduction. And what it is a very quick snapshot, of who you are in the present, and also where you're trying to go in the future. You have to be able to be versatile with your elevator pitch. Like I said, it won't be the same. You won't be in the same experience every time you share your elevator pitch, but also making sure that you're flexible is key, because like I said, you'll have to change it and make sure it's limited to 1 minute. And so we typically would allow for individuals to practice an elevator pitch with us, but what I'm going to encourage you to do is take some time once you have ended this call, and I can answer any questions that you might have about it. But the more comfortable you are with your resume, and this is where I go, I'm very passionate about this. The more you know your resume, the more you know your educational and your work experience, the easier your elevator pitch will be. I always encourage individuals who are in job searches, if you haven't read your resume at least 10 times, you're not serious about this job search. If you have not read your resume 10 times, flat at minimum, you're not ready to go into an interview. You're not ready to answer the question, who are you and why should we hire you? You're not ready for that. And so reading your resume 10 times will support you putting your elevator pitch together in a very concrete manner. And so I want to encourage you, if you have not taken the time to sit with yourself and sit with your resume and really consume who you are so you're not caught off guard by interview questions, I want to challenge you to do that, all right? And so here are the career consultants that we have in the Career Center and across campus, and we cover all majors, and you can set up appointments with all of us. And you see the emails at the bottom. A few more. I advise former student athletes as well. And so obviously in this fall, we'll be able to take appointments, but they'll be virtual. So you can set those appointments up in Handshake once you've set up a profile. And if you're not following us via social media, I encourage you to do that. We share a lot of great content there. And so follow us at UAB Career Center. Learning outcomes. And what I'm going to do now is stop sharing. And we're going to transition into our interview portion, more specifically with regard to COVID-19. And so interviewing anyway is a very uncomfortable experience. I don't know anyone who likes interviewing. I don't know anyone that enjoys answering the question, so tell me about yourself. I don't know anyone that enjoys that. Everyone gets clammy, everyone gets sweaty. All of these things happen to people in interviews. And so I wanted to share in a remote experience, which is most likely right now, here are some tips at making sure that you have a productive and effective virtual interview. So the first thing you want to do once you have accepted an interview is you want to test your technology. So if they're going to be using Skype, you want to make sure that you got Skype on your computer. If they're going to be using Zoom, you want to make sure you got Zoom on your computer. If they're going to be using FaceTime or whatever it might be, you want to make sure you have access to that technology. So test that technology. Secondly, you want to make sure that your backdrop, your scene, is as professional as possible. So set the scene and minimize distractions. Set the scene and minimize distractions is number 2. So whether that means you need to have a background set up, make sure that background in your, if it's Zoom, make sure it's a professional. Always encourage people to go with a not patterned digital background, but a plain color, a dark color, like a black or a gray or a dark blue of some sort. So, and then also make sure you minimize distractions. You don't want your cat walking in front of your screen when you're having an interview, or make sure that you've made your bed. We've had plenty of meetings with students in their bedroom, and their bed it looks atrocious. Make sure that you're in a quiet, make sure that you are in a very remote situation. So if that means you got to sit in your closet, that means you're going to have to set up in your closet. If that's the only quiet place in your house, you need to make sure that you got minimal distractions. Secondly, make sure you sit down prepared. When I say sit down prepared, you don't want to be in the middle of your interview and have to go to the bathroom. Make sure you've done that before you sat down. All right. Make sure that you have your documents, whether it's your resume, whether it's the job description. Make sure you've turned your phone off. These things, when your phone rings in the middle of a job interview, that means you were not prepared, because you wouldn't let that happen in a regular setting, right? And so also make sure that you practice. Don't memorize. That's why I say read your resume 10 times, practice answering the questions that you know are going to happen. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Why should we hire you? What are some of your strengths? Right? Where are some areas of growth? Make sure you're practicing these questions and not memorizing them. And the best way to do that is to know the job description. So read the job description multiple times, and also make sure that you have read your resume multiple times. Also, monitor your body language. I've been on conversations with students and alums, and individuals are twirling their hair. And these are things that you wouldn't do when you're in an interview, right? So make sure your posture is comfortable. Make sure, if you can, make sure that you're dressing the part. And then also, yes, eye contact. Eye contact is crucial. And so it's not necessarily important to stare dead into the webcam, but make sure that you're being intentional about addressing the interviewer, and also not looking down at the keyboard. These things are noticeable. And also just do your best to make a connection and be yourself. It's just going to be different. If you haven't done it before, it's just going to be different. So the more you practice, the better. And then also, when you are preparing for that interview, it is so important to understand that once you get on there, there are multiple types of interviews. So it can be, just interviews come in many shapes and sizes. It can be like what we're doing right now, a web interview, one-on-one. It can be a group interview. It can be a panel of folks on there. It can be something along the lines of a stress interview. It can be a phone interview. It can be so just understand the variety of what you might experience in an interview process. It's not just a one-on-one anymore. You can very well come into an interview process and you log on and there's 3 individuals there, and all of them are gonna propose questions to you. So just make sure that you're prepared and understand and equipped to tackle all those different scenarios. And the better you know yourself, the more comfortable you will be in that process. And I also wanted to share a few different ways people hurt themselves in an interview. All right, so it's one thing to talk about all the positives on what you should do, but here are some things that you should not do. So make sure you're taking notes. Not speaking to your resume. And so many people get into interview process and they get questions that caught them off guard, and they try to think up an answer out of nowhere. And that's not helpful. That is not going to support you landing this job. And that's why I say stick to your resume, read your resume, so that you're able better to articulate and understand their question and how your experiences fit what they're talking about. And you're speaking directly to your educational and your work experience. Most people mess up because they hang so tightly on one skill set, right? So you get a person who's a great sales manager, and this individual wants to harp on that one skill set that they have. But an employer needs to know, an interviewer needs to know that you have some transferables, that you have some soft skills, that you've developed hard skills, that you have developed your presentation skills over time. Do not just harp on one skill set. Show the breadth and diversity of your skill set, and that'll make you more attractive. Not elaborating on your previous experience. Once again, this goes back to getting off track. A lot of times I'll say it to our students like this. I'll say, stick to the script. Stick to the script, stick to your resume, and don't deviate from your resume. If it's not on your resume or it's not on your LinkedIn profile, don't go there, because it's going to take you out of your comfort zone. So don't go there. Talking too much or talking too little. It's important to weigh every word that you share in an interview process. So you don't want to get caught being so long-winded and you still haven't answered the question, but you also don't want to get caught vice versa, being very short and you still haven't answered the question, right? And so make sure that you understand. And if you do not understand the question, there is nothing wrong with asking an individual to repeat themselves. Make sure that you are comfortable and you want to provide the best answer possible. So if you don't understand an answer, excuse me, can you repeat yourself so I can make sure I understand? Right? So make sure that you ask for clarity. Do not use phrase words or buzzwords. And then also don't appear overly confident. And I don't think that's any of you, but there's a lot of students that graduate that think they're going to make $100,000, right? And they walk out of UAB and they think, oh, I deserve $100,000, and you didn't even do one internship when you was in school. So that's not gonna be the case. So just make sure you have a little bit of humility about this process. And then, so lastly, I want to make sure that I cover the follow-up. So the follow-up process in this interview process is important. I want to make sure that it is a must. You need to follow up, and here are some things you need to do when you're following up via email. Make sure you're addressing the person by name, by first name. So ask for a business card, or make sure that you've looked them up or tried to connect on LinkedIn. Mention the job that you applied for in the follow-up email and the date that you interviewed to refresh their memory. And then also confirm that you are still interested in the position and eager to hear their next steps. And then finally, ask for an update. Can you communicate the next steps in this process? And so the follow-up is almost as important as getting the interview itself. And so that's all I got for you. Right now, I know that there are some questions, and so I'm going to stop right there and try to answer as many of them as possible. And if I don't know the answer, I'm going to say I don't know. So here we go.
So let's say you get in that awkward situation, because it happens on basically all Zoom meetings, where somebody says something, you start replying, and then all of a sudden you're talking over each other. What should the interviewee do if that would arise? Do they just sit there and shut up?
So if you're in an interview and multiple people are talking, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
So you always want to show respect to the employer. So I would say that the employer has the right of way in that situation, and make sure that once the employer has finished speaking, make sure if there was a question and you might have lost ground on that question, make sure that you ask for them to repeat the question so that you can communicate whatever the question, the answer that the interviewer was going after in the first place.
So you shouldn't be going, no, you go, no, you go, no, you go.
No, okay. don't do that. Just allow the right of way to the employer.
Got it. So how do you approach the balance between privacy and adequate information on sites like Handshake or LinkedIn?
Privacy. So I've run into this a couple of times with individuals that have, don't want to share contact information, which I understand, addresses and things like that. And then also not wanting to share different things along the lines of transcripts. I think that whenever so LinkedIn has over 500 members. I think Handshake has 14 million students and graduate and alums in there. I think whenever you are developing a professional brand, you need to be intentional about making sure you stay to the professional right? You don't want to be sharing unless, let's say you're a photographer and you take pictures, right? And you're building a portfolio. You might want to share your portfolio, and it might have images of your family in that portfolio. But let's make sure that if you're not comfortable with that, that you remove those from your portfolio. Right? So if there's anything that you don't want shared, whether it's professional, in your professional networks, you don't have to include, don't feel obligated. And if you run into a question in an interview that you feel is inappropriate, you're not obligated to answer. And many of them are illegal anyway. And so I should have probably went through some illegal questions as well in interviews. But if you're uncomfortable with sharing that, and that's your moral stance and that's your ethical stance, you don't feel obligated to share. If that makes sense.
How do you politely decline in that instance?
So, so in the interview process, let's say someone asks you, it happens, unfortunately, things like, oh, so are you pregnant? These things happen, right? So, oh, are you expecting? It's appropriate to say, I don't think it's appropriate for me to answer that question. Can we move on from there? Right. And so that might be direct for most, but it gives the interviewer, it allows the interviewer to understand that you are trying to stay professional in this experience, right? This is not an interview about my personal life. Like many of our students, we're trying to help them with, what they post on Facebook, what they post on Instagram, because much of what that does or does not support is your personal life. And so you have to protect that as well. But you can politely say, hey, I don't feel comfortable answering that question. Can we move on to the next question? All right. And so, but don't get caught off guard by that. But it's important to make sure that you know what's out there about you, and that you also are prepared to answer those questions when they come up with hey, I don't feel comfortable. So no one can argue with your comfort level in the interview. That's a personal, it's not on you. I don't feel comfortable. Can we move on to the next question is a polite way to do that.
Are there differences in the elevator pitch in a virtual career fair and a video meeting environment?
So in a virtual career fair, so to be honest, all of our virtual career fairs will be, all of our career fairs this year will be virtual. And we have about 96 employers already registered for all of our career fairs this year, which is unheard of for me. So what you will experience in a virtual recruitment experience is limited amount of time. So you're not going to have as much time as you would have in person, because you can kind of control your environment. And if you're not clear, the recruiter most of the time will stick with you. But in a lot of these virtual platforms that we're using, like we're using Handshake, they'll have a limit on how much time you can spend with that recruiter. It'll be like 3 minutes or 5 minutes. And so what we're encouraging students and alums to do is to come prepared. Come prepared with your elevator pitch, and also come prepared with your questions that you want answered. But no, generally it's not different. You just have to be flexible depending on the role that you are pursuing with that organization. Depending on the role that you're pursuing with that organization, you want to make sure that you're able to cater. It's not a one size fits all, so, but you want to have your basics down. So I think I saw a question that said, hey, can you give an elevator pitch? And so here's a sample elevator pitch for myself. I meet someone on the elevator. Hi, my name is Brandon Wright. I'm currently a PhD student at UAB. I'm the director of the UAB Career Center, and I've been in career services for 8 years. My future goals are to be a president at a university and help all students accomplish their goals, more specifically underrepresented students of color. basic and to the point, right? And so who I am, what I'm doing right now, a little bit about my past, and what my goal is in the future. Now, it could be I was in the elevator and we're getting off the elevator, and someone says, "So what is it that you do?" My most simple reply always is, I help people accomplish their goals. And you have to develop that tagline for yourself. So what that looks like for you, Greg, or Jane, or anyone on that, I encourage people to make sure that they have their own, I call it a tagline, but make sure you're able, whether you're a healthcare professional, whether you're in business, you want to make sure that you whittle out the filler words and make it as clear and concrete so that when people leave, they know who you are and where you're trying to go. You don't want to leave any questions on that, and only you can develop that.
What's the difference, or are there differences between the elevator pitch and the tell me about yourself?
They're very similar, but to tell me about yourself, you get a little bit more time on that, right? So in an interview, you typically will have, that's pretty much one of the first questions. But what I do encourage people, to do is not talk about their personal life. Do not talk about I've had alums talk about their spouse, talk about their kids, and talk about, the service that they do with their church. And don't get me wrong, I value all of that, but that's not appropriate depending on the organization. That's not going to help you get that job, right? You can talk about that after you get the interview or the job, but so when they ask you about tell me a little bit about yourself, they're asking about your educational experience, and more explicitly, how your job and educational background matches the job description, right? So can you bring a connection between what they have posted as the main job descriptions and what you bring to the table? And so that's really what they're asking in a tell me a little bit about yourself. And then an elevator pitch is a more quick snapshot of your past, your present, and where you're trying to go.
What is the best way to answer the question? Because it's going to come up. What are your strengths and what are your weaknesses?
Yeah, so always the strengths, I encourage people to make sure that they've taken, some strength assessments. There are a number of them, the Hollins Code, the MBTI, there are the strengths finders. So if you have a problem with answering your strengths, then there's a solution for that. You can complete some of these assessments. Some of them are free, some of them are not, depending on where you are, but complete a few of those assessments, right? So whenever someone asks you about your strengths, you have something to lean on concrete, right? So for me, I know I'm a visionary, and that's come up on all of my strengths assessments that I've taken, and I've taken them all because I've been in this role. But on the weakness side, they still give you weaknesses on a number of those assessments. So my weakness is that I'm not detail oriented, and I know that. And so I can counter the fact that I'm not detail oriented with the fact that I've created processes that I have to support the fact that I'm not detail oriented. So making sure that I have a step-by-step process in my project management platform that ensures I don't miss the details. That's how I support the fact that, and that's how I work on it. And so whatever your strength is, those assessments, so the MBTI, that's Myers-Briggs, the Hollins Code is another strength assessment, and then also Strength Finder. Those are three that and there's a number of them. So just make sure that whatever scale or measure you use, that is credible. But just make sure that that you take those and that you look at both sides of the coins. You don't just want to focus on your strengths, you also want to focus on your blind sides as well. And a number of times we don't even know them until we've either asked folks or taken these assessments.
How and where do you add a journal article that was self-written on a resume?
A journal article on a resume? So a journal article on a resume, depending on what your CV might look like, it might go under publications, which is most, when we're working with faculty or researchers, we'll have a publication section on their CV or their website, whatever it is, but you'll just make sure that you can include all of the different type of publications that you might have.
Can having an active LinkedIn profile be seen as a negative? For example, shared with your current boss that you're actually actively looking.
So no, because everybody's always looking. So in LinkedIn right now, I can show you I have an active LinkedIn profile. The thing that makes you active is that you're adding value to other people's lives. So maybe you're going to write a post that helps people transition back, or you're going to share some great updates from the research that you just published, or you're going to share an article. That's what makes you active. You can click one button and say you're not currently job searching, and you won't show up to any recruiters or anything like that. But what makes you active in LinkedIn is the fact that you're engaged and you're adding value to the community of your interests.
What do you think about attaching an entire resume on LinkedIn?
Can you repeat that?
What do you think about attaching your entire resume on LinkedIn?
There's nothing wrong with that, but you should make sure that whatever is in that resume needs to be on LinkedIn. So whether you have, just different publications or different news clippings and things like that, you need to make sure that you include that. You don't want to make it look like you tried to shortcut, because LinkedIn is a billboard for Brandon Wright. So it's not going to help me if I just attach my resume there, because that's like driving down the highway looking at this massive billboard that I could have put my whole bald head on and only putting a piece of paper on the corner. That's not going to help anybody notice me, right? And so just hoping that they click on that button. And so I would say that make sure there's nothing wrong with it, but understand that that's not optimizing your network or your brand.
We still do have time for questions, so keep those coming in. Can you speak on how to best approach confirming with the audience that they're able to see and hear the individual as well as share any content?
So I'm assuming this individual is talking about presenting in a virtual experience. So I think that goes back to making sure that you're testing the equipment that you have, the software that you need before you get started. So just for example, Greg contacted me before this and he asked a number of questions. Hey, will you be using PowerPoint, or would you like for us to advance the slides? And then also, hey, can you log in 15 minutes early to this meeting so that we can make sure everything is kosher on this, and make sure technology is up to par, make sure that we can hear each other, make sure that we, are present. And so I think if you are in this experience and you are remotely, you're doing some presentations of some sort, it's important to make sure that you test the equipment, that you have the appropriate facilitators. Let's say you're going to be using breakout rooms, you're going to need some support with that. If you're going to be using polls, you're going to need some support with that. So let's make sure that that you've practiced and that you put the time in to make sure that experience is an effective and productive experience for everyone.
How do you know what platform, i.e. like Zoom, the employer is actually using? If they don't send it in the initial, hey, here's your interview time and date, can you reach out to them? How do you reach out to them?
Yeah, that's the question. You want to make sure there's, like I said, if you don't know, you don't want to assume I used to play football. I played football in college, and my coach told me, assuming gets you beat every time. So don't assume, ask the question. So there's nothing wrong with sending a follow-up email to the recruiter that contacted you and say, hey, I just want to confirm that I have the appropriate technology for this interview. Can you share the platform that we will be using, whether it's WebEx, Zoom, or Skype? You can list those as examples for this interview so that I can prepare. Thank you. All right. So if you don't know, just make sure that you ask the question. Don't assume, and don't wait till the day of the interview. Don't wait till 15 minutes before the interview to ask that question.
Brandon, thank you so much. Any closing thoughts before we let you go?
No, if you all want to contact me directly, my email is btwright@uab.edu. So btwright, BTWRIGHT @uab.edu. And feel free to contact me there, and we can meet. If you have anything, just don't hesitate to reach out. I appreciate it.
Your website is uab.edu/CPD. They can also contact you at careerservices@uab.edu. Brandon, one more question before we go. Should you ask in advance if the virtual interview will be on or off camera?
That's a great question. That is a great question. And if you have any reservations about that, I would ask. That's a great question. I haven't. Most time when it is a virtual interview, unless it's a phone. So most times, if they don't want the camera on, they're going to do a phone interview. But in platforms like Zoom, you could potentially have the camera off. So I would say just ask the question. You just want to make sure that you're briefed on what you need to be briefed on so that your comfort level is at an all-time high when you engage in that process. So great question.
Awesome, Brandon. Thank you so much for joining us for this informative discussion today. Just a heads up to our guests, a recording of the webinar will be available online tomorrow. Be sure to register for upcoming webinars sponsored by the UAB National Alumni Society. On August 11th, we invite you to spend a fun-filled hour with us as part of our second UAB Trivia Night. Then on August 27th, the National Alumni Society will host its 2020 annual meeting. We're still finalizing beer pairing with food webinar coming up as well. So go to our website, check out what we have going on, alumni.uab.edu. Don't forget to check out our podcast. It is UAB Green and Told. It gives us a chance to share stories from members of the UAB community. New episodes drop every other week. The latest was yesterday with our Executive Director and Assistant Vice President of Alumni, Jennifer Breland, talking about the membership changes with the National Alumni Society and how it affects you, the alumni. Listen in on Spotify or iTunes, or visit alumni.uab.edu/green and told. Also interact with the UAB National Alumni Society on social media. On Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, we're at UAB Alumni. And we work with Brandon with LinkedIn. Just search UAB Alumni Career Community. Finally, if you want more information about the National Alumni Society, visit us online at alumni.uab.edu, or you can email us anytime, alumni@uab.edu. Once again, thanks for joining us, Brandon, and everybody in our audience. Good afternoon. Enjoy the rest of the day. And as always, go Blazers.